All right, guys, so what I'm going to do is kind of go through the review to make sure that everybody understands this. Everybody might do this a little different. This is for those that need it. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you know the main idea of every question. You may not know everything or understand every single thing in the question, but the main thing is to look at the question and then be able to point out the main idea. So for instance, here we have, what is the slope of the line represented by the table of values? Keyword is slope. So we know that slope means change in y over change in x, or we say for short, y over x. All right, and then where we go from there is actually find the change in y and the change in x. So between 9 and 1, that difference is -8. And if you don't know that it's -8, just do 1 minus 9, and that'll give you the -8 part. All right. And then the change between -7 and -2, if you don't know, take -2 minus -7, and that'll give you a +5. Therefore, our slope is -8 over 5. All right, that's the answer here, right? -8 over 5. And I'm trying to color coordinate, but I'm doing a terrible job here. Let's see. Maybe this will be a bit better. All right. Now, when we look at number 2, it says, what is the slope, right, of the graph of y equals 12x minus 19? Let's not forget our different forms that we already went over in class. You got slope intercept form, right, which was y equals mx plus b. So y equals, this is in y equals y equals form. Remember that it's m, that's the slope. So here our slope is 12. All right, our slope is 12. And number 3, what is the slope? Okay, it says, what is the slope of the line that passes through these points? So it gave us points. Whenever you're given points, just put it in a table. XY table. This is how we write a point in a table, because I've seen some of us do it incorrectly. 5, -11, and then -9, 17. Then you find your change in y and divide it by your change in x. So the change in y is 28. The change in x is -14. When you divide it in your calculator, you get -2. Number 4 says, what is the slope of the line represented by 5x minus 12y equals 24? Don't forget that, yeah, we talked about slope intercept form, but there's also standard form. And with standard form, we have ax plus by equals c. And in order to find the slope, we have to use the formula -a over b. All right, so when we find -a over b, since a is 5, we got to do -5 over b, which is -12. If we plug this in our calculator and simplify it, we get 5 over 12. All right, we get -12. So we're going to keep moving. All right, we're going to keep moving real quick here. So let's say we go up to number 5. All right, and it says a lot of things, but the key thing is it says, what is the rate of change? Don't forget, rate of change just means slope. And since we're given a table, we're going to find the change in y and divide it by the change in x. So we take our second number minus our first number. All right. So that becomes -72 minus -92. That's just 20 over -6.5 minus -8.5. That's +2, which gives us 10 for our rate of change. And then it says, what is the rate of change of y with respect to x? Keyword is rate of change for number 6. Now, we're looking at the graph here. So there's a point here and there's a point here. Note that this point, x is -4, y is 7. And then here, x is 4 and y is 1. So let's put that in a table. We'll put our first point first, -4, 7, and then we'll put our second point, 4, 1. We got to find our change in y and divide it by our change in x. Notice how we can put almost everything into a table. The change in y here is -6. I got that by doing 1 minus 7. And then our change in x here is +8. I got that by taking 4 and subtracting -7. I'm sorry, -4, which gave me 8. So I had to put my change in y over x, which is -6 divided by 8. And that gives me -3/4. So that is the rate of change for number 6. Number 7, it says a whole lot. But I'm looking for the question. What is the rate of change? All right. So note that whenever we have a word problem and we see something other than x or y, the left is x, the right is y. All right. And what we're going to do is like we've been doing, find our change in y and divide it by our change in x. So m equals, for this one, we should get 40, I'm sorry, hold on. We should get 43.75. And I got that by just subtracting 63.75 minus the 20. And divide that by our change in x, which is 5. And I got that by taking 5 and subtracting 0. And this gives us 8.75. That's the rate of change. We keep going. It says the function y equals 3.75 plus 1.5 times x minus 1 can be used to determine the cost, blah, blah, blah. But what's the main thing? The question. What is the rate of change of the cost in dollars with respect to the number of miles? So if we look at this, our rate of change, this is a point slope form, actually. Remember, point slope says y, go back. It says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, the slope is right in front of the parentheses. So if we look here, right in front of our parentheses, we see 1.5. And that's why that's the rate of change. So that's what we write. 1.5. Remember, you're going to be given the point slope form, standard form, and slope intercept form. Moving on to number 9. Says a lot, but we're looking at the graph over here on the right. And particularly, we're looking for the rate of change. So we have our 2 points. Let's put it in a table. So that's -3, 3.6, 5, 2. And remember, find your change in y and divide it by your change in x. So this becomes -1.6 divided by 8. When we simplify it in our calculator, it's going to give us -1/5. That is our rate of change or slope. Now for number 10, it says a lot, but we're looking at the graph over here on the right, and it says write the best representation of the rate of change. So that's what it told us to do. So what we're going to do, it doesn't give us 2 points, but we can choose 2 points. So I chose the point 0, 0 right here. And I also chose the point 1, 400. Now, if you choose a point like right here, 0.5, 200, that's fine. But you do have to realize this is 0.5 for this x right here. Okay. So I just recommend sticking with the whole numbers. And there we go. So remember, this point here is 1, 400. And this point here is 0, 0. You can put it in a table if you like. 0, 0, 1, 400. And we're looking for our change in y, and we're going to divide it by our change in x. So that's 400 over 1, which is just 400, which is the rate of change here. For 11, it says find the x-intercept, y-intercept, and slope. So 3 main ideas here. let's go ahead and find the X-intercept. It's called X-intercept because it is on the X-axis. So see this X right here? That's going to help you determine the X-intercept. And the graph crosses right here where X is 3. So for the X-intercept, remember this is X, Y. We're going to put 3 here. And for Y, on the X-axis, the Y is 0, right? The Y is 0, so we're going to put 0 here. And for the Y-intercept, we're going to go along this Y-axis and look for the graph. Where does it cross? And so we keep going, keep going, keep going. And it's right here at -5. So for the Y-intercept, where Y is, I'm going to put -5. And notice on the Y-axis is where X is 0. So we're going to put 0 there. And there we go. We got 2 points. Now we need to find slope. Don't forget, slope is Y over X, also known as rise over run. However you want to do it. You can just name the 2 points. You already given them. Put them in a table. And find the change in Y divided by the change in X. Or you can do rise over run. Right? We went up 5, right 3. So put 5 over 3. Okay? So that's what we put in the blank, 5 over 3. Then the right side, we do the same thing for this graph here. It's asking for the X-intercept, Y-intercept, and slope. For the X-intercept, we look on the X-axis, look at where the graph is. And anytime you want to just work it out and then play the video, just press pause, work it out, and then press play to see if you got it right. All right, so that's -1, 0. And then for the Y-intercept, we go along the Y-axis, look for where the graph is. It may be tempting to say 4, but it's just beyond 4 at 5. So for the Y coordinate, we put 5. And for the X coordinate, remember, X is 0. So we put 0. Okay? So we could use those 2 points, put it in a table, and then find our change in Y and divide it by our change in X. Or we can do our rise over run. Go up 5, right 1. 5 over 1 is 5. And there we go. Now for number 12, we're given 2 points. Says a graph of the linear function g passes through the points -7, -4, and 7, 6 as shown. So here's the graph. So pay attention to these points, right? And it says, what are the slope and Y-intercept of the graph of G? So for the slope, don't forget, change in Y over change in X. Just put it in a table, right? These 2 points. So that's -7, -4, and 7, 6. The change in Y here is 10. The change in X here is 14. So that gives us 10 over 14. If you simplify it in your calculator, like you know how, you're going to get 5 over 7. And if you don't know how to simplify, you just plug in 10 divided by 14, then press math, enter, enter. So that's 5 over 7. For the Y-intercept, we're going to look at this here graph, right? Look on the Y-axis, and we're looking for where the graph crosses. It's right here at 1. So Y is 1, and of course here, X is 0. So that's your Y-intercept. We're over halfway done. 13 says a lot, right? Tells you about the problem. But then it says, what is the X-intercept? X-intercept, we look on the X-axis, and notice how the graph crosses right here at 60. So X is 60 when Y is 0. What does this mean? In terms of the situation, it takes 60 months to pay down this loan. So we could say after 60 months, the loan is paid off. Now for 14, it says, what is the zero of F? Zero means X-intercept. My suggestion is to take this point they gave you. So it says the graph of the linear function F passes through the point 1, -9. Now, just because I go straight to the question don't mean we shouldn't read. They give us a point. We're going to put that point on the graph, 1, -9. And then we're going to use the slope, which is -3. So that's our rise over run. And plot the rest of our points. Now, if we're at 1, -9 and we go down 3, we're off the grid. So we're going to do the opposite. Instead of going down and right, we're going to go up 3 and left 1. And we're going to keep doing it. Up 3, left 1. Up 3, left 1. And that's actually giving us our x-intercept, that last point we just plotted. But take a straight edge, make your line, and notice here's our x-intercept right there at -2. So -2 is our answer. Now 15, it says the graph of the linear function k passes through the points -7, 0 and 1, 8. Notice -7, 0 is the x-intercept. So when it asks which statement which statement must be true, we read all of this, but look at the last one, the x-intercept of the graph of k. That just means the graph that makes these points is -7, and that's true. So that's the answer. Now for 16, it says the water level of a river was measured each day during a 2-week period. The graph models the linear relationship between the water level of a river in feet and the number of days the water level was measured. Which statement best describes the y-intercept? So the main idea here is the y-intercept. And since we know 16 is the y-intercept, H is the only possible answer. Now, if you look at 17, it says the graph of the linear function is shown on the grid. What is the zero? So take a moment and see if you can determine what the zero is before I give the answer. Press pause. Hopefully what you noticed is that 0 is the same thing as x-intercept, and the answer is 3. The answer is 3. Now 18, it says in a sequence of numbers, A3 equals 0, A4 equals 6, A5 equals 12, yada, yada, yada. Find the nth term in the sequence. My suggestion is to plug each of these into y equals, then press second graph to look at the table. And what you're looking for is a table that when you scroll down and you get x equals 3, you find that y is 0. When x is 4, you find that y is 6. When x is 5, you get y is 12. And so on and so forth. And the only one that's going to do that is C. That's the only one. For 19, it says a sequence can be generated by using a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus 5, where a1 equals 6. What are the first 5 terms in the sequence, right? Key thing, main idea, we want the first 5 terms of the sequence. We're already given that a1 is 6, meaning the first number in the sequence is 6. How do we get the next number? By adding 5. So this is 11. Add 5, we get 16. Add 5, we get 21. Add 5 more, and we get 26. And we've completed 19. Now for 20, it says a part of the linear function is graphed on the grid. Write the inequalities, describe the domain and range. Remember, domain is x, range is y. So what we're going to do here, since this is closed circle, remember closed circles is less than or equal to. So we put our domain x in the middle, write our less than or equal to sign, And for X, it starts right here at -7. It ends right here at 6. And we're done with that. Now we do the same thing for Y. Put Y in the middle, put our less than or equal to signs, and we know that because these are closed endpoints. The lowest Y is -4, the largest Y is 5, so we write the largest here, the smallest here, and whoop, look at that, we have our domain and range. For 21, it says, what are the domain and range of f of x equals -37? The first thing I want you to remember is that f of x is the same as y. So this is y equals -37. Remember, range is y, domain is x. We're going to focus on the range real quick. If the range is y and it says y equals -37, that means the range is -37. Notice with these answer choices, the only one where the range is -37 is D. And no matter what, the domain is going to be all real numbers. So the answer is D. Last one. It's giving you a whole scenario here where the plumber charges a fixed cost of $80 plus an additional cost of $45 per hour. It says the plumber works a maximum of 8 hours. For 1 day of work, what is the range of the function for this situation? So if we're talking range, we're talking about how much will he charge over a day. So since the plumber can work a maximum of 8 hours, we're going to go all the way to 8 hours. So we're going to start at 0 and go until we get to 8 hours of work. Now, even if he doesn't start, if he come out there, he's charging you $80 and then $45 for every hour. So after the first hour, it's $125. After the second hour, and all the way I got this is just by adding 45. All right, the next hour is going to be $170 for 2 hours, right? We're just adding 45. Take this through your calculator and just keep adding 45. I believe this is 215. I'm doing this in my head, y'all, so check me. And by the time you get to the bottom, after 8 hours, he can make $440 if he stays at your house or wherever you are for 8 hours. And that's what you're going to write for the range. So this is actually discrete. We write it out. 80, 125, 170, and you keep going until you get 440. And that's it, guys. We found the range.